Hello, and welcome to episode 75 of the Mo Money Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Morehouse, and welcome to another listener series episode. This one featuring another Jessica. Ooh, I mean, that's bound to happen. My name's like the most popular name in existence. Thanks, Mom. So I am going to be talking to Jessica Watchorn, who is a listener, but she, I found out, is also a podcaster. And so her story, we'll obviously find out when I get to the interview, but she is an artist. She went to an art school, and now she also has an art podcast. It's called the Art Pro Podcast, and you can find out more info about that at artpropodcast.com and also on iTunes. But yeah, we talk about her kind of learning about personal finance the hard way and trying to make it as an artist in, tough circumstances, tough times. So we're going to get to all of that right now. Thanks, Jessica, for joining me, Jessica, on the Mo Money Podcast. I love talking to other Jessicas. I feel like we just kind of have a special bond, even though we don't know each other. We have the same name, so we basically know each other.
I love that too.
And where are you from, or where do you currently live?
I actually also live in Toronto.
Do you?
Yes.
Ooh, that's fun. How do you like it? Or are you from here originally? Or
I'm not from here originally. I'm from a small town outside of Ottawa, and then I lived in Montreal for 5 or 6 years, and then came here.
Ooh,
and I've been
nice.
here for maybe almost 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah, that's a while.
Making
that's
the rounds.
Yeah, very cool. I still haven't been to Ottawa yet. It's on my list, but it's also like not high up on the list. There's lots of other places that are a little bit more tropical I'd rather go to.
That's fair. Go in the summer though if you go.
I know that's what everyone says, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to go in the winter when like that river's frozen. You could skate on the river.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to go past winter, but it never froze. So
yeah, winter's gotten really weird lately.
It's global warming
really for my entire life.
Yeah. It's getting weird. It's super, super weird. Anyways, enough about all of that. I can get off track a little bit, can't I? Thank you for writing into me, and I'm so glad we can chat because I actually, obviously I really identify with your story and people will understand why soon. But basically, I love your story because it is very relatable. I feel like so many people listening could be like, yes, I totally get it, because your situation is you went to art school and that's kind of where you thought your career was going to go, and then you realized it's not as easy as you thought it would be to find a job in that industry. And of course you racked up some debt and things happen. That's life. I mean, that is probably the majority of people that go to university thinking that, oh yes, I'm going to get a philosophy degree and get a job right after it, and then they realize, oh, there aren't any philosopher jobs out there. No, they're not.
And you just don't know that when you're 16 and you're signing up.
You don't, and your parents don't necessarily know, just because things have changed so much in the past. I mean, since they were in school 20 or 30 years ago or whatever. So
that's really what
you are kind of just going to school a bit blindly. And also like when you're 16, 17 and have to start figuring out what school you want to go to, what program you want to do, you don't know what you want to do. I mean, especially as millennials, I mean, we still don't know what, we kind of, flip-flop between careers and jobs like crazy. So it's hard to kind of pick the right path, that leads to, easier times when you graduate so you can find a good paying job sooner rather than later. But so what is your story? So where did you go to school and what did you study?
I went to art school in Montreal, and I studied studio art, so drawing, painting, and I felt like I was lucky because I knew that that's what I wanted to do, which is at the time like seems great compared to everyone else who's like, oh God, I don't know.
That's true. It's like, I know what my passion is. At least I've got that. And that is that is a big deal.
Yeah. I was like, this is my thing. I'm good at it. I honestly didn't think I would be able to go to university because I didn't know anything about it and it just seemed expensive. But my parents were like, oh, you want to go to university? That's great news. We'll help you figure it out somehow. Which was so nice of them. Because I also like going to art school. I think a lot of people's parents are like, what? No, choose something more passionate.
Yeah, you have to be
my
a
parents
doctor.
Were like, you're the best. But they didn't know. So, and I also went to an arts high school. So it really seemed like a totally normal thing to do, to go and study art in university. There was like no one around telling me like, are you sure that's a good idea?
Yeah. Wow.
And I mean, I really enjoyed my time there, and I feel like I learned a lot, but I realized I was racking up quite a lot of student debt while I was there. And in maybe like my second or third year, I decided to make it a double major because I thought, oh, it's good to have like another thing to fall back on.
And what were your majors?
Well, the thing that I chose as a second major was political geography, which it turns out is also not a thing you can get a job doing.
I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. So again, really interesting, really liked studying it, but
yeah,
I ended up going to school for 5 years, full-time year round, so full-time in the summers as well.
Oh, wow.
And by the time I graduated, I owed $40,000, which is quite a lot because I had like never even had a full-time job. And I was like, oh, how am I going to pay this off?
Yeah. Like when you, have no money, that seems like all like a lifetime of money. You're like, how am I ever going to pay that off?
Yeah. I mean, I never felt like I was bad with money or sort of stupid about money. I think I'm kind of like a natural saver. I'm like naturally kind of frugal, which is helpful. But yeah, that's a lot of money. And honestly, like you can't even really fully conceive of that amount of money.
Now,
when you like,
did you
never
spend it?
Had it or dealt with it?
Totally. Like, so was that mainly just like your living expenses, like your rent and like buying food? Because you obviously like lived in Montreal. You can like live with your parents while going to school, and then I guess tuition.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you very well could have lived fairly frugally,
but it's not like I lived in expensive apartments or had a car or like I was living pretty cheaply. I was probably living on $1,000 a month or less.
That is cheaply. Yeah.
But still, like over 5 years, it adds up a lot, I guess. And when I got out, the first bill I got, they wanted me to pay $900 a month, which I had only been living off of like $1,000 a month. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. I know when I read that in your email, I'm like, that does seem like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, you're like, wait, you want $900? I just finished school and I don't have a job yet.
Yeah, it was bad.
Wow.
So I ended up moving to Toronto in the hopes of like getting a better, higher paying full-time job. Which kind of worked, I guess.
There is more. I mean, that's why I moved here. There are more options. There's a lot more opportunity, I'd say, than lots of the other cities in Canada. And I know Montreal can be good, but also I don't know. I feel like there is more job scarcity there a little bit.
My French is not very good. That was the main thing.
Okay. That also probably doesn't help.
That did not help me there.
Yeah.
I really liked it there though. But yeah, I was also feeling pretty depressed when I graduated because I realized even though I had been selling a bit of my art while I was in school and getting into a few shows here and there, I realized once I graduated that like I just had no idea what to do to actually making art into a career. Like it is possible to do because certainly there are people who make a living as artists who at least scrape by. And there are also clearly people who make a very good living as artists.
Yeah.
But I personally had no idea how to become one of those people. And I got very discouraged very quickly. I really started to feel like it wasn't in my control and that it was all up to other people to see my work and pass judgment as to whether I was good enough or not. And I started to hate everything I made. And then I just stopped making work. And I got a job in a restaurant. And I still couldn't, I still barely was making enough to start paying my student loans. And I tried to defer them. And I tried to get my monthly payment reduced. But they kept losing my paperwork. And I kept resending it. And they kept losing it. And I was like, oh, I give up.
Yeah.
Giving up was like a big part of my life at that time.
Well, I can see that's so hard to deal with. And I'm assuming from what you're saying, there was never a part of your program or curriculum that was like, all right, so now that we've taught you how to make art, this is how to make a living off of making art. Probably not.
Not really.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's a big problem in a lot of art schools, but I also partly take the blame myself. But I just didn't realize at the time what I didn't know what I didn't know. Like in hindsight, if I could go back now, I would think like, okay, it's really important to like have personal relationships with my professors. And if I could intern as like an assistant to another artist, I could see how it all works behind the scenes. But at the time, like none of that occurred to me. I just was, going to class every day, trying to do my work, trying to be a good student, hoping that was enough, which it's not really.
I totally get you, because when you're in that like school university bubble, you're more focused on just finishing your project, studying for tests or whatever, and finishing everything on time and doing it well and getting good grades. But you're not actually, you've been in school your whole life, especially if you didn't take a break between high school and university. And so that's all you know. You don't know how to find a job, especially if you've never worked before. And I think that's a huge issue, especially I think that's a big component to why lots of millennials have a hard time managing their money, because they don't really start doing that until they graduate university and they're in their like early to mid 20s, and then you're like, oh, what's going on? And then that's when decisions are made and mistakes are made, and it's really unfortunate. And I was telling you before you hit the record button, I totally had the same experience. Like I went to film school, and it wasn't until like literally a couple months before graduation, I'm like, whoa, professor, like how do I actually get a job being a filmmaker? And there wasn't much they could do. They're like, well, you can do a master's. That is literally what they told me. I'm like, but that's not a job. That's just delaying like life. That's just going to do more school and getting in debt more. And
and I don't know what I thought. I don't know if I thought that there was going to be like a job application where they were like, we want to see your art degree to prove that you're qualified to do this job. That doesn't exist.
No, they don't care.
I don't really know what I thought, but somehow I just thought like, well, like surely there's something and I'll figure it out when I get there.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, I was like, oh no, I don't know.
And like, did you ever talk to like maybe your teachers or parents or just like people that are older than you, and they'd always like their kind of way of making you feel better was like, it's okay, it'll all work out, or you'll figure it out. I got that a lot. And I'm like, but that does not help me. Like I got that all the time.
And you know what? Really I kind of believed it too, because like growing up, a lot of the people, the adults that I knew didn't, they weren't like, this one's a doctor and this one's a fireman, like people have jobs that are like, oh, I didn't even know that was a job. So I just kind of figured like there will be something like that I don't even know exists, and then I'll find it and do it.
And then everything will work out. Yeah.
Because like, clearly everyone else seems to have like figured this out somewhere along the line. They found something that they're good at doing and they were able to get hired to do. Exactly. And of course that is what happens, but it's not, it's not all sunshine and roses the way you hope it will be.
Exactly. They just don't talk about like what they did to make those things happen. They didn't just like opportunity to just like land in their email inbox.
Yeah. And people
being like, I have a job for you. It's like they probably went out and asked, like they probably did some work to get to that point, which, they didn't really fail to mention, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
what did you do?
Well, I just didn't pay it for a little while, and I went to collections, and that was bad. And then I finally like found a really good deal on an apartment, and by then I was maybe making like $12 an hour. So I was like, oh, I should be able to start paying this now. I pay less rent, I make a tiny bit more money. This is great. So I was really just paying like, and like I say, I was in collections, so I sort of called them and was like, hey, will you take this much money? And they were like, great, that's better than the $0 you were getting before. So that was kind of an improvement. But I just kind of paid like just whatever I had, like $500 here, $200 here. Yeah. And then somewhere along the line in August 2014, I found somehow Jacob Fisker's book, Early Retirement Extreme. And I think I kind of hated my job at the time. So I think the idea of like, retiring really early was really appealed to me.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
It actually still kind of does really appeal to me.
But... yeah, totally.
Yeah. But that book totally changed my outlook. Because in that, like, even though he sort of tells his story, but even though he had a much better job than I did, he was living on much less than I was making, even though I wasn't making a lot. And that's when I really thought like, oh, like, not spending all your money is a thing that you can do, even if you hardly make any money. And at a certain point, I'm sure that that's no longer true. But, I was making at least $20,000 a year. So yeah, it seemed possible. And so I started tracking my spending to figure out where all my money was going. I didn't have a credit card or anything, so I wasn't going further into debt.
That's good.
But I wasn't like, money wasn't piling up in my account. I wasn't having like as much. I wasn't having $900 a month to put on my student loan. And yeah, I realized I was spending money on a lot of stuff that didn't make any sense.
Like what kind of things?
It's not like I was going out on a shopping spree all the time and, buying clothes or, nothing like that. But I was in the habit of buying groceries all the time, even though I worked at a restaurant and I worked a lot of hours. So all those groceries were just going bad in my fridge. And I realized I was spending a lot of money at like the dollar store and the pharmacy and like just going out whenever I wasn't working to like run errands that I didn't need to run.
Yep.
And that was taking up a huge amount of my money. I was also, eating out too much and drinking at bars too much. And
you're young. Yeah, I totally get that. It's hard to, and I'm glad that you figured out tracking your spending is like the way to kind of get out of that cycle, because that's most of the reason people are like, I make this much and I don't know why I'm not saving anything. It's because you're wasting on things that you literally don't even think about.
I always tell people to track their spending, because it wasn't even hard after that. Like once I saw where my money was going and like added it up by category, it was like, no, that I don't want to do that. That doesn't, like
no, it gets embarrassing. You're like, I don't want to
dollar store every month is clearly not adding to my life joy.
Exactly.
Plus, that was the main thing. I already had like a good cheap rent, so some of those big things were taken care of. So for me, it was a lot of like wasting my money like $5 at a time. And I just had to like stop going to those kinds of places and stop doing that. I actually still eat out. I still drink at bars. I bought a bike, a $100 bike, which saves me like $140 a month.
Yep.
So just from that one change, I saved like over $1,000 a year. So
that's awesome.
That was like a good, quick thing that I was like, whoa, I just made this one change and I already am going to pay off $1,000 extra dollars in my student loan this year. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So things like that were really good. And I cut my spending down to 50% of what I was making and started putting the rest on my student loan.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's what you wrote to me. And I'm like, that's amazing. Because I feel like a lot of people forget, they don't think they can save like such a high percentage of their income when they don't feel like they're making that big of an income. But I mean, you're a testament that yes, it can. And when I first moved out of my parents' place and had my first job, my salary was $30,000.
Yeah.
And I, was living in the city and it was not cheap, but I had like $200 in the bank because I think I spent all my money on my MacBook and because I needed a laptop to live because it was my whole entertainment system.
Yeah.
But basically, I just kind of worked from the ground up. And in that first year, I think I saved $8,000 or $10,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, and I still have the budget to prove it. Like it happened. And just looking back, it's like, well, I really just didn't spend that much money. And it wasn't so much that I was going without, but it was just like, I didn't spend money on stuff I didn't need. I bought the things that I needed. And that was it. It was fine. And it was kind of nice because it was very simple. It was very simple living. And I didn't have too much clutter. I didn't have stuff. And it was fine because I could focus on the things that were really important to me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that too. I went through almost everything in my apartment and I got rid of so much stuff. And that really helped me too, to not buy more things. Because it's like, I don't want any of this stuff. And every time I go to a store and think about buying something, I just think about like, am I going to have to go through all my things to throw this out again later? Like,
exactly.
Am I just buying this to make myself feel better right now? Or do I actually want and need this thing? So that was super helpful as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what's your debt at right now? Because you were able to actually pay down quite a bit of it.
it's gone, which is
Your debt
great.
is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. How long did it take you from, I guess, graduation day to having it all paid off by?
Well, because I didn't really start paying it right away, I start counting from when I paid it. So took me a
Okay,
little
yeah.
less than 3 years in total to pay it off.
3 years
And
to pay
most
off
of
40
that
grand.
was
Wow.
at the end. Because like I was saying, when I started paying it, it was like a few $100
Little
here, a
bit.
few $100 there. But yeah, at some points I was paying more than $1,000 a month on it, which really helps to start the ball rolling. And I should say also, shortly after I like kind of had this revelation that I didn't want to be paying this off forever. I realized I was paying like $4 a day in interest on it when I first calculated it. And I also realized the faster I paid it off, the less I would have to pay in total. So that was really motivating because especially at the beginning, I really felt resentful about the debt. I kind of felt like embarrassed about it because I felt like I made bad decisions to get that debt in the first place. And I also kind of felt like I'd been tricked, you know. I did all the things that people tell you should do. You know, I felt like I was on the straight and narrow path. And then suddenly I was like just marooned with this $40,000 debt. So frankly, I was like kind of angry about it. And I was like, I do not want to pay $1 more than I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily, shortly after I had that realization, my dad gave me $5,000 of money that he inherited after my grandmother died to put towards it, which was really nice. And that helped. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
And, I also decided that as part of getting my financial shit together, oh, can I swear here? Sorry.
Yeah, you just did. It's fine. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, of course. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I also realized I should do my taxes because I hadn't done taxes in 4 years.
What?
I know, it was like a disaster. And I was really scared to do them because I thought, oh my God, what if I owe more money than I already owe?
Yeah.
But I thought, no, I'm a responsible person now. I'm going to do them. And if I owe money, at least it won't be accruing interest any longer than it has to, and I'll just deal with it. But I ended up getting like $9,000 back.
What? See, doing your taxes does pay.
Yes.
Off.
On that day, my opinion about taxes like turned from scary to like the most exciting thing you could possibly
You like look forward to tax season every year
I
now,
literally
right?
cried. I was so happy when I told me how much money I was getting back. I was like, this, because that sped the whole thing up by
Oh my
almost
God,
a year.
yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And I really felt like I can't do anything with my life until I get this paid off because it just felt like, how can I save up to go back to school or, you know, save up to buy a house or start any kind of career or go traveling or anything if I have this obligation to be paying this every month. So yeah, anyway, that really helped. And
Definitely.
I paid the whole thing off in June or July of 2015.
Oh, nice. So you've been debt free for over a year now.
Yep. Yeah, it was good. I
Nice.
threw myself a little party.
Yeah, you did.
Kept trying to keep my spending low.
Nice.
Which was great because now I just get to watch that money pile up in my bank account.
Exactly. So what have you been doing since then to make sure, A, you don't get back into debt, and B, to really ramp up your savings because you haven't really had that time to do that until now?
Well, I'm still tracking my spending. I've tried a few different ways of sort of managing my money every month, but what I do is I know what my big payments and things are every month. And so I have different accounts within my bank account, if that makes sense. And so I have one that all
I've
my
got
bills
a
and
ton
stuff
of
come out
accounts.
of.
Yep.
And I sort of put the
Totally.
money for that in there off each check. And before I do anything, I take the check and I divide it by 50% and I move that 50% of the whole thing into my savings account. And
Pay
then I take the
yourself
money for the bills,
first.
and then what's left is what I can afford to spend. And if it's more than I think I need to spend, then I even shovel a little more into my savings.
Nice.
And yeah, But I think part of what really motivates me too is just looking in my bank account and being like, "Mwah."
Right? Doesn't it feel so good getting richer?
It's a great feeling. And you know what? It's not even so much about getting richer as feeling like I actually have options now.
Yep.
Because yeah, there was a time when I really felt like I can't do anything and I'm trapped in this job that I don't like. And paying that off really changed my outlook on a lot of things. Like once I started to feel like I was in control of my life again while I was paying it off, I realized that I didn't hate my job. And and once I finally paid it off, I finally started making art again. And I feel so much less negative about that entire experience now that it's over, which maybe in hindsight totally makes sense.
Totally.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah. So you also let me know that you have your own podcast, which I think is so awesome because it focuses specifically on other artists and how they make a living and how they, basically go from art school to artist in the real world, which I think is so great because I would like to know how, like I didn't do that. I was kind of a chicken and went a totally different route, just found a desk job after film school. But it's like something I always kind of wonder, like, how do these artists, and it's like art is so important. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important art is for our lives, our culture. I mean, without art, we'd just be like looking at our computers and just like nothing would be beautiful. But that's a whole other conversation. But so I think that's so awesome that you're, kind of in your way promoting like art in one way, and also kind of, shining a light on how you can actually make a living or at least some sort of income off making art.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that I'll be able to help someone else who's in the same position that I was, so that they don't just feel like they have to give up. Because
absolutely.
For a lot of people, like, it's part of how you define yourself, and it's very unpleasant, let's say. to have to question that and wonder, like, is this the thing for me? Like, maybe I'm just not good enough. And I think a lot of the time, obviously, like, hard work and having skills is a huge part of it. But I think that if people sort of knew what they could really do to try to make a living from their art, or see how it's really done by people who actually do it, it at least kind of levels the playing field. And so, that's really important to me, and I'm really enjoying doing it. It's super interesting and fun.
That's awesome. So if anyone was interested in finding out your art, what kind of art do you specifically do? Is it painting or photography?
I've done a lot of different things. I do a lot of painting and drawing still. And like I say, I didn't do any for a long time. And now I'm just sort of slowly getting back into it and trying to feel out what exactly is the work that I want to make, and what do I want it to be like, and what do I want to do with it. So right now I'm still in that sort of exploring phase. But it honestly just, I'm so glad that I'm doing anything instead of just looking at my sketchbooks and feeling sad.
Exactly.
It's a big step in the right direction, at least.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that, maybe by the time this episode airs, or just in the near future or whatever, you'll maybe have a way for people to find your art, and maybe they can contribute to, helping you make an income from your art. Cause I mean, at least I know for me, and I know this is, just be a little silly, but it's like, I moved into a place and all the walls are bare, and I need art. And it's kind of heartbreaking to like look on like, home furniture, stores, and try to find art there. Cause you're like, but it's not like true art, it's just a print, or it's just like a silly saying, so it's like, I think that's so important to have real art that's made by, current artists, from, local artists. So, you let me know when you're ready to sell some stuff, and I'll see if, or maybe I can commission a self-portrait.
Okay, great.
Maybe not. Maybe not a self-portrait. That might be a bit much.
Yeah, but that's awesome. It's important. And sometimes it's hard to put your finger on, why is art important? Like, is this really a thing people need to do? But if you just ask yourself, like, would you prefer a world with or without art? It suddenly becomes like clear again. And I just have to remind myself of that.
I know. And I don't think people realize how much art is involved in their day-to-day lives, you know, like sometimes you just don't even notice, or, you know, like, 'cause it's like, sure, if you go to an art gallery, that's one thing, but it's like art is kind of all around you. There's lots of different types of art. And I don't know, like I'm a, you know, total artsy fartsy type of person. My dad is an amazing artist, and he can draw and paint like nobody's business. And, yeah, something that's always been, really close to my heart. Like, I know I've never been like I've always wanted to be really good at painting and drawing, but I know that's just not my strong suit. But I really have a big appreciation for people who can really, you know, do that. I think it's really important.
Yeah, everybody's got their thing, and it's a struggle that everyone faces to just figure out, you know, like, how can I set my life up so that I can do the thing that I'm called to do or that I love.
Exactly.
You know, and whether that's becoming a doctor or becoming an artist or I don't know, whatever, it's kind of the same thing. And that's why it's so great what you're doing with this show, because personal finance is such a big part of that, like so much more than I ever could have realized without having gone through this whole experience.
I know. Who knew? Like, I guaranteed, well, similar to you probably, like, I didn't think coming from film school that I'd be this personal finance gal that loves to talk money all the time. And I've had my blog for almost 5 years, this podcast for over a year. And it's just like one of those things. It's like when you have to deal with money and you really understand the importance of understanding it through and through. Yeah, it's powerful. And it affects everybody, right? Everyone has to deal with money. And, you know, hopefully more and more people can be like you and have that kind of epiphany and realize I need to take ownership of this and I need to take action. Because it sounds like you were kind of in a dark situation and it's done a complete 360 and you're in this awesome, positive space and passionate about doing your own art again. Yeah.
I really hope that anyone listening who thinks like, oh, if only I had like a real job, then I could do this. I especially hope that those people will see, you know, I'm a cook in a restaurant. It's not like a glamorous job. I don't make a lot of money. But you can still be in control of the decisions you make with your money, and you can still, you know, really do something for yourself with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jessica, for chatting with me and sharing your story. It was a delight, of course, because I'm talking to another Jessica.
Yes, thanks so much for having me on.
And what was the name of your podcast in case anyone wanted to check you out?
Oh, it's the Art Pro Podcast, and you can find it on iTunes or Stitcher or on my website, which is www.artpropodcast.com.
Perfect. And I will, of course, link to that in the show notes. So thanks again for joining me. And I'm excited to see where your art takes you. I'm excited for you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. It was great to talk to you.
And that was episode 75, another episode in my listener series featuring Jessica Watchorn, who also has her own podcast called the Art Pro Podcast. You can check her out at artpropodcast.com or check it out on iTunes. I know right now I'm going to give her an iTunes review because it's a fabulous podcast. I absolutely love what she's doing. So make sure to check out her podcast and do the same. Maybe give her a review too. It always helps. And if you are in the review mood, give me a review too. Why not? Why not? Why not? And if you want to be featured on a listener series episode, I am absolutely looking for more interviews, especially for my upcoming season and season 4 for 2017. So please shoot me an email, jessica@jessicamorehouse.com, and we can chat. I would love to, learn about you and your story and share it with other listeners. So thank you for listening to this episode. Of course, check out the show notes for more information, and you can check that out at jessicamorehouse.com/75. Thank you again, and I will see you back here next Wednesday.